SABC News presentation.
Good evening, welcome to Interface here on SABC3. My name is Thembi Samachele. Well, as you know, it's a big day in South Africa tomorrow as we head to the polls. Questions have been raised about the credibility of the elections and whether or not they will be free and fair. And IEC Chair Advocate Pansy Tlakula joins us tonight on Interface to chat about these matters. And as usual, we welcome your comments on our Facebook page. It's Interface on SABC3. Or you can tweet us. Our handles are Interface on SABC3 or Thembi Samachele. Well, welcome, Mama. Thank you very much for coming through.
Thank you very much for having me.
Big day tomorrow. Will these elections be free and fair?
Yes, we have put all the measures in place to ensure that we'll produce a free, fair and credible outcome.
Let's start with how free they will be, because we've heard reports of violence and intimidation, and we've heard the political hotspots. How are you handling that?
You know, we are an election management body, and our constitutional mandate is to conduct elections. The state has the responsibility to secure the elections, to ensure that people vote in an environment that is free, that is also peaceful. So we have been hard at work, liaising with the law enforcement agencies, and they have assured us that they will deploy police and, where necessary, members of the SANDF to secure the voting stations and to also ensure that voters are not intimidated. You might have heard the Commissioner of Police this morning assuring the nation that they are ready and they have taken care of all the hotspots, and South Africans can be assured of voting peacefully tomorrow.
Now, I know that you can't get into the security detail of what what will be put in place, but if there's somebody, because I heard on the radio earlier today, somebody saying, an old lady saying,
yes,
if I have to get out of my house to go and exercise my right to vote, what assurance do I have that I am going to be protected all the way from my house to that ballot station?
It is true. I saw that old lady, and that's precisely the point, because the right to vote is an individual right. And I think the attitude that we should adopt as South Africans is that those who feel that they do not want to participate have the right to do that. But at the same time, they should not prevent those who want to participate from doing that. And we are hoping that the presence of the security officers will be able to give those who want to participate the assurance that they can do that without intimidation.
And then we heard reports today as well that there are about 10,000 ballot papers that were found in a house in Niger. So the numbers vary depending on who you're listening to. What is the truth to that story?
It's not only the numbers that vary, it's also the location.
Yes.
Because last night when we heard the story, it was Tsakani, then it became Springs. Now I heard Nigel.
Yes. So the location shifts by the day.
But I can say that the accurate report is that it's Springs, and the number of ballot papers that were found, according to the information that we have as the Commission, is that at that particular station, 14 people had applied for a special vote, and 2 had cast their ballots. So as far as the information that we have, and this was the information that was verified to me by our officials on the ground, together with the provincial electoral officer, that the ballot papers involved, those that were actually marked, were 2, and only 14 people had applied for a special vote. So if only 14 people had applied for a special vote, would not distribute thousands of ballots to that station, because the way we provision is according to the number of people who have applied successfully for a special vote. It will be a security risk if you have 14 people who have applied and then you deliver 10,000
yeah.
of ballots. That's not how the
So
system
the numbers are not
works.
adding up. But
Yes.
shouldn't there be measures in place to make sure that something like that doesn't happen? Because every single vote counts, and
Yes.
no ballot paper should be found at anybody's
Exactly,
house.
you are absolutely correct. Those measures we had put in place, what was supposed to happen is that when a voting station closes, a person called the area manager is supposed to take those boxes to a secure facility which had been arranged and had to be locked up and guarded in that facility. But in this particular case, we hear that the area manager did not turn up at the time when the voting station closed. And the presiding officer apparently was not sure what to do with these ballots.
And
The
just took them
story
home.
goes, the story is as follows that we had, and the police are still investigating, so we have to be quite circumspect in the way that we present these facts. But what was brought to our attention is that this particular official, together with the party agents who were there, then had a discussion on what he or she should do with these boxes, and the agreement was that they can be stored at the house of one of the party agents. But as I'm saying, the police are still investigating.
Okay. Now, we also saw that South Africans living abroad got a chance to vote, and there were complaints from many of them that the voting stations were just far too few. You had to travel, one of the voters said, had to travel a distance of from Port Elizabeth to Johannesburg to go and cast a vote. Why is that? Why were there not more stations?
The limitation is that we could only establish voting stations at our missions abroad, because the missions abroad are the only South African territory. So in terms of international law and the protocols that apply, we can't just go to a church in Philadelphia and establish a voting station. The voting station has to be within the territory of South Africa.
But
And
it's 2014. Surely we could have gone electronic in some way. Why can't people cast their votes online?
well, you know, elections, they are about equality and equity of treatment for all voters. You see, let me give you an example. If we start by saying, okay, let's introduce postal votes, for instance. Every voter has to be able to access a post office to be able to cast their vote. If you can't do that, then it's a problem. If you talk electronic, you shouldn't only talk about people in London. Gogo in Gamutintani in Limpopo has also, and her grandchildren, if they want to access that facility, they should be able to vote electronically. If you cannot treat all voters equally, then that becomes a problem.
Right. I would like us to pick up on this point, because the difference is that she's not overseas. She's here. She can walk to a voting booth. She can access it more than somebody living abroad.
Look, the law has to apply equally to all South Africans, whether they are abroad or they are in South Africa.
All right, we have to take a short break. And remember, we take your comments on Facebook, Interface on SABC3, or on Twitter at Thembi Samagele or at SABC3. Interface on SABC3. Welcome back to Interface. We are in conversation with the chairperson of the IEC, Advocate Pansy Tlakula, and we're talking about the IEC's readiness to host us for the elections tomorrow as we cast our votes. Now, we were talking just before the break about experts voting online, and you were just explaining that it needs to be equitable. If we allow any online voting, it must be allowed for Gogo and for somebody
For
in London.
all South Africans, they must have access to that facility.
So just in line with that, we read earlier that we can't take selfies in our voting booths. Why?
Because your vote is your secret.
But if I would
That's
like to
what
share
the
my
law
secret.
says. And we want that to be sacrosanct. So we have a regulation that says you can't take a photo of your marked ballot, and you can't even reproduce. and publicize that.
But advocate, if I can wear a T-shirt telling everybody who I support and who I will be voting for, why can't I take a picture of who I'm voting for? Same thing.
You can wear a T-shirt of any political party. Once you get into that booth, who you vote for, it's between you and your God. And only you and your God, if you believe in God, will know who you have voted for. So what the T-shirts that people are wearing, or whether they, have been buzzed by this party or that party, it doesn't take the matter anyway, because the moment of truth
is in that booth. So, the urban legends. I'm sure you're very familiar with all of them.
Lots of them.
One of them says that some of the political parties say, okay, here's some money, go vote for me. Now you need to give me proof that you voted for my party. Hence, you go in there and you take a picture of that ballot
That's
paper.
precisely the point.
Okay.
That we don't allow people to take photos of who they voted for. So if they want to take the money, well, we cannot, it's not legal to do, but because that's buying of votes. But you have no guarantee, if you're a political party, that if you have given somebody money, that they will necessarily vote for you. And to protect the voter and the secrecy of their vote, we have put this regulation that says they cannot take a photograph.
Okay, I want to read you some of the messages that came forward on Facebook, Interface on SABC 3. Loyiso Tuakadi says, I'm struggling to understand why not. This is now talking about the selfies ban. Could this be an attempt to ensure the rigging of votes goes unnoticed? And then Dean Byrne says, voting is a private thing, shouldn't be advertised. I agree with it. Lindy Wemkunu says, by banning selfies, the IEC is violating my rights. I know my rights. I will do it, and I will see what is going to happen when I do it in that voting booth. So what will happen if we do take those selfies?
We said that the law says it is an offense to do that, and I'm sure people do not want to be charged for that. It's a simple thing. We're protecting all the voters. The law says your vote is your secret, and all that we're doing is to apply the law. Talking about whether we want to rig elections or not by not allowing selfies, we also have to clarify how the system works. The votes are going to be counted at the voting station in the presence of party agents and observers, and the results will be recorded in a result slip, which will be filled in duplicate. One copy will be left at the voting station on the door or window. The second copy will be put in a tamper-proof envelope and escorted with police, and we're hoping that people will abide by our instructions. And it will go to the municipal electoral office, because in each municipality we have an office where this result slip will be open. The numbers that are recorded there of, the number of votes that each political party has received will be captured into the system. If party A has 20 votes, the number 20 will be captured next to that, the name of that party, and it will be captured twice. First time blindly, and we say blindly because the figure will not pop onto the screen. Second time capturing as well. And why that process? To ensure that there's consistency between the first number and the second number.
So there's a whole
After
method
that,
and science
it's not only that result slip will be scanned. So there will be a computer image of not only the number that has been captured, but also the actual result slip, because it will have been scanned. So party agents will be able to compare what they will have written with their own hands with what is in the system. And the political parties that are at our results center would have seen that we've made provision for political parties, and they have access to our result system. They'll be able to follow and access a result for each and every polling station. So those are the measures that we have put in place. In addition to that, we have at the capturing point what we call independent auditors that we have also employed at a very huge cost to also audit these results to ensure that they represent what came out of the polling station.
So one of the issues that's come up is about your presiding officers.
Yes.
That you have the majority of them about 10,000 out of about just over 22,000 of those presiding officers being teachers, and the assumption being they are SADTU members and SADTU being linked to the ruling party. So do you want to clarify how that works?
Teachers make up only 13% of our entire electoral staff, and we have 220,000 electoral staff. 13% of that are teachers. So let me tell you, as presiding officer, let me tell you how the system works. A number of years ago, we developed a criteria for recruitment of presiding officers and their deputies, and that criteria was developed in consultation with political parties, because in terms of the law, we have to consult political parties on all our systems through the party liaison committees that we have established, which exist at national, provincial, and local levels. So the criterion says any person who is an office bearer of a political party or an office bearer of an organization affiliated to a political party or an office bearer of an organization with party political aims will not qualify to be appointed as an election official. How do we then execute that? Once we have identified people who will work in our voting stations and they are identified at the local level, we take their names to the municipal party liaison committee to say, here are the people that we're going to employ, and give them the opportunity to object. Okay. And if they give us an objection...
Can I ask you to hold that thought? We have to take a short break. You know we have to pay the bills, but I would like you to just clarify that right after this break. And remember, we are taking your messages on Facebook and on Twitter. Do keep them coming. Welcome back to Interface, wrapping up our conversation with Advocate Pansy Tlakula. Let's just clarify the point that you were making before the break, and that is, have you used the majority of presiding officers, made them to be teachers who are SADTU members and therefore affiliated to the ruling party? That's the question.
Before the break, was explaining to you the criterion for identification of electoral staff, including presiding officers and their deputies. So we don't ask people whether they belong to a trade union or not. We look at whether they comply with the criteria, because there's also the right to freedom of association that we also have to take into consideration. Because when we employ these people, we're not saying to them, are you SADTU, are you this trade union, or are you that trade union? We don't do that.
So the assumption that by virtue of being a teacher, you must then
be SADTU.
You
may be SADTU, you may not. You may even belong to another trade union or not belong at all.
So let's take some of the messages that you've brought on Twitter. Monwabisi wants to know whether or not these elections are going to be credible, particularly with you at the helm. What is your response to that?
Absolutely credible. And I think we should have this conversation with South Africans after we have announced the results.
And then we also have another question coming from Diane, who wants to know whether or not the matters that have been brought against you are going to be an issue in this election.
No, there will not be an issue. So they are separate matters, and that matter is before the court and will be dealt with on the 2nd of June.
So you don't think you should step down at all?
No, I'm not. I've said that in the past, and I'm here. And I have said one of the issues that I've raised in my court paper is that the independence of a member of the commission requires that you can't bow to pressures from political parties. They say do this and then you do that. If they say do that, you do that. The matter is before the court, and the court will deal with that matter.
Do you have the support of your staff at
About
the IEC?
What? Of course, everybody is working, and everybody is hard at work to ensure that we deliver a credible outcome.
Okay, so within the leadership of the IEC, there aren't people trying to, that are not happy with you, trying to get you out, thinking you shouldn't be at the helm of these elections?
There is nothing like that.
All right. So now, just moving on to other matters, because there's so much for us to cover, particularly about the positions, IEC staff positioned in some of these crucial areas, looking at particularly Marikana, which has been a very hot spot if you want to look at the political history in this country recently. What are the measures being taken to protect those voters there?
I mean, the measures are the ones that we spoke about at the beginning of the interview. It's the state that has to protect the election, and adequate deployment of members of the security forces has been done by the SAPS.
The difference, though, with this one is that it's not individuals targeting polling stations or, burning polling stations. This one is a very hot political platform in that you have big political parties that have been jostling for attention in that particular space. So surely the measures should be stepped up in some way.
Of course,
so what has
because
been
the
done?
level, I can't tell you about the measures because they stopped being security measures.
I guess.
Except to say to you that adequate measures have been put in place to ensure that voting will take place peacefully in that area.
All right. Let's take some of your other messages coming through. I just want to read some of these coming through on Facebook. Interface on SABC3 is how you find us on Facebook. And Tabo wants to understand from you, Advocate, whether or not there are issues between you and your deputy on the board, Terry Tselane?
There are no issues that I'm aware of.
There are no issues because he has said that there is a lack of credibility at the IEC because of what's happened.
I didn't hear him say that.
Okay. Tabo, there's your answer. She did not hear him say that, and therefore it does not exist. So what is the message then, particularly moving back to the elections? We had a lot of energy being put to trying to get those that were born after 1994 to go and vote. And so to register to vote first and then to go and vote tomorrow. Can you give us an indication of the numbers? How many are you expecting? Have they come out in their numbers?
Well, it could have been better. We had expected all the 18 to 19-year-olds to register, but the numbers are not as good as we thought they would be. But if you look at the whole category of the youth, which is 18 to 35, the numbers are quite good. I've just now forgotten exactly what it is because we dealt with it at that time. But our message to all South Africans, to young people in particular, is to say that the right to vote is a right that did not just come easy.
Came at a price. It
came at a price. People lost their lives, and we should never take it for granted. So those who have registered, we are appealing to them to please go out in their numbers to register. It's easy. It should be exciting to vote for the first time as a young person. And I'm encouraged by those that I saw on television who were interviewed even this morning to say they are registered and are looking forward to participating tomorrow. And we're calling upon them. And we're saying to South Africans, our voting stations open at 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock, but please make sure that we are there on time so that we don't have queues at night.
What then do you say of the stalwarts that have been coming out, surprising everybody, saying, spoil your votes?
Well, you know, we live in a constitutional democracy where we have freedom of expression, and we had a meeting with the former Minister of Intelligence, Mr. Ronnie Kasrils, together with his team. We explained to him how the spoiled ballots work in this country, that a spoiled ballot doesn't count. But their message also, I must be fair to them, when we met with them, was that they're encouraging South Africans to go and vote. So at least there we have unity of purpose, calling upon South Africans to go out in their numbers tomorrow to cast their votes.
All right, and just quickly, how soon after we've cast our votes will we know who our leaders are going to be?
Well, you know, South Africans, if I say to them on Friday, everybody will be calling me on Friday and say, but the results are not there. If everything goes according to plan, probably Saturday we'll know the results. In any case, the media will know the results because they will have access to our system and they will know each and every result as it comes in. But official announcement, everything going according to plan, we hope that it will be on Saturday.
Well, thank you very much for joining us and coming to talk to us here on Interface. Advocate Pansy Tlakula. And remember, You need to go out and vote and go out in your numbers, and the SABC will keep you posted on how those numbers are coming through and telling you who has actually made it to lead this country. That's how we come to the end of our program here on Interface tonight. Remember, the conversation continues on Facebook, Interface on SABC3, or on Twitter at Thembisa Magele or at Interface on SABC. Good night.